Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Welcome to Victory Talk Radio here on Victory Radio. And boy, I'm excited tonight because we are going to talk to Captain Kirk of the Starship Enterprise. And we just appreciate him taking his time out from his busy schedule of fighting Klingons and playing three-dimensional chess with Spock and refereeing fights between Dr. McCoy and Mr. Spock. Well, welcome, Captain Kirk.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you, John.
And this is Vic Mignogna, who has a wonderful new online Star Trek series called Star Trek Continues that is pretty much picked up where the original Voyages left off, as if we're in the fourth season of Star Trek. Obviously, you are a huge fan of Star Trek, or you wouldn't be doing this. Tell us a little bit about your love for Star Trek and how it led to the creation of Star Trek Continues.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, John. It's a pleasure to join you. As you said, I've always loved the original series. I grew up loving the original series. And the original series of Star Trek really inspired me in many ways to try a lot of creative things that I had never tried before, like acting, or filmmaking, or prop building, or set building, or costume making. So, 40 years later, after spending, the last 4 decades developing skills in all those different areas, I felt like, wouldn't it be neat to make a series that continues the original and picks up where it left off, and maybe give the original series of Star Trek the ending that it never got. Give it the closure and the resolution that it never got. So I brought together a bunch of dear friends and talented artists. And a little over 2 years ago, we premiered our first episode, Pilgrim of Eternity, and so many people enjoyed it that we just kept making more. And we just premiered our 4th episode last month in Phoenix. The White Iris is the name of the episode. And we're actually getting ready to premiere episode 5 in September.
Oh, so y'all have already filmed episode 5 then?
Not only have we filmed it, but it's done.
Oh, wow.
It is filmed and edited, special effects. The music is currently being worked on. The sound design is currently being worked on, and we will be releasing that episode in late September.
Well, I can't wait. And the anticipation builds with each episode. On Facebook and on your Star Trek Continues page. I mean, the fans are just are really excited about this. What do you see when you obviously you've been to several conventions, sci-fi conventions and everything, and filmings? How are the fans with this?
Oh my gosh, the fans are beyond amazing. I'm one of them, so I totally get their enthusiasm, and hopefully we are representing the dream of hundreds of thousands of Star Trek fans who always pretended being a part of the original series and always imagined being one of the characters. So it's a real privilege to be doing what we're doing, and the fans have been so supportive.
Yeah, I can imagine people listening to this that are Star Trek fans. I think everybody at one time or another has had some type of flip toy where they acted like they were talking into the communicator.
Right. Right.
I remember when I was a kid, I even had one of those little phaser gun that used to shoot out those little plastic discs.
Oh, you know what it was called? It was called the Star Trek Tracer gun.
Yeah.
Remember that? Oh, yeah.
And my mom, one year when I was a teenager for Halloween, made me a replica of the Captain Kirk T-shirt and the shirt.
See, now my mom didn't make me. She just taught me how to use a sewing machine so that I would make my own uniforms and I would leave her alone.
That's right.
And here I am 40 years later still doing it.
That's right. Y'all have really recaptured the essence of the original show. If first of all, if people listen and haven't seen it, you got to go to StarTrekContinues.com and see these episodes. They are absolutely amazing. And for me, and I'm sure a lot of fans, it's like finding unreleased episodes or continuing of the series. Obviously, watch and study the original series because you have just about every nuance of William Shatner's Kirk down to a T.
Well, I never studied it. I just loved it. You know what I mean? When you're a little kid, as you probably know, when you're a little kid and you lock into something that you really love, you just absorb it. And I would dare say that I probably absorbed the original series in every way. The music, the sound effects, the stories, the characters, even down to William Shatner's mannerisms and portrayal of Kirk. So when we started Star Trek Continues, I absolutely wanted fans to feel like they were watching a continuation of the original series. You know, you hear people out there say, well, I wanted to make the character my own, and I wanted to bring my own flavor to the character. Well, I'm sorry. I don't think anyone cares about Vic Mignogna's flavor. I think they want to see, if they loved the original series, they want to feel like they're watching the Captain Kirk that they grew up loving. So it has been my goal to accomplish that.
Wow, and I think you've done an excellent job on that. And I got to ask, how in the world did y'all build the original sets to such perfection?
Well, thank you. Well, the bridge that we currently have, which is it's a partial bridge. It's not a full 360 bridge, but the bridge that we have was built by our friends at Starship Farragut, and we joined forces with them a couple of years ago. They had a small facility in South Georgia where they had a partial bridge, and I rented a much bigger facility, and they moved their bridge into that facility. And then my DP, Matt Busey, who happens to be an amazingly gifted architect as well, he took the original floor plans off the internet that are readily available off the internet, and he calculated all of the measurements and all of the numbers, and we began building all of the rest of the sets. The big bending corridor, briefing room, sick bay, transporter room, captain's quarters, Jeffrey's tube, you know, all of it. And even in episode 3, we built the auxiliary control room. And right now, we're in the midst of building engineering. We finally raised the money to be able to build that huge, monstrous 2-story set. So, you know, a lot of very meticulous care and attention went into building those sets. And you know what, John? Let me say something. The sets to any production are nothing more than a backdrop. Anybody can build sets. Anybody can put walls up and paint them. But what happens in front of the camera, in front of the sets, is most important. Right. There have been plenty of people that have made sets that look great, but, you know, the viewer turns on a TV show and they look around the set for 20 or 30 seconds and they're like, wow, what a very cool set. And then they're over it. And they want somebody to tell them a good story. Mm-hmm. So I always felt that while the sets and the accuracy of the sets was vital and it was crucial, it was nothing more than a means to an end, because what the people really care about are good episodes and good stories with good actors. So that's always been the goal.
Yeah. Now, this is kind of a funny question. I got to ask though, when you rebuilt engineering, does it have that little white plastic piece that Kirk was able to beat Khan down with after Khan had 5 times his strength?
You know, it's funny you should say that, because Michael Okuda asked me the same question. He said, "Are you going to have those little pipes that you pull out that Kirk beat up Khan with?" You know, I have to tell you, Space Seed was in the first season of Star Trek.
Right.
And the first season engine room was different than the third season engine room. They made some changes to that set during the seasons. So I kind of promised Michael Okuda that we would have those little things, but we haven't gotten to them yet. We're finishing up the basic construction, and I'm going to be going down to the studio actually in a few weeks, and maybe when I get down there, I'll make sure we get some of those built.
Well, thank God they had him in the first season. If they didn't, Kirk never would have won that battle.
I know. Khan would have won, and it would have been a whole different story.
That's right. Well, your latest episode is out is called The White Iris. Tell us a little bit about that episode and the storyline.
Well, I'm very proud of this episode. You know, after we did the third one, that was the mirror episode with a lot of action, a lot of physicality. I was a little bit worried about this one because it's much more of a dramatic, character-centric, Kirk-centric episode. But in a nutshell, I always felt like Kirk got a bum rap, always being painted as, you know, as a womanizer who would just fly off to planets and, you know, and make out with different girls and then leave without any kind of conscience or, you know, any kind of feeling about it. I always felt like that wasn't consistent with his character. So we wrote a story that addresses the fact that Kirk cared a lot more for these women than he ever let on, and more specifically, that he carries a great deal of guilt about the women from his past that he loved and lost. Right. So the episode addresses that theme. And I think anybody out there that's more than 18 or 20 years old can identify with the idea of carrying guilt around from past relationships that went bad or people that they hurt and never got a chance to get any kind of closure. So that's the story.
Right. I'm going to play a clip from the episode, kind of the climax where you're where Dr. McKenna is talking to you about that. Here it is.
You've lost some people very dear to you. Your responsibilities have required you to make certain sacrifices.
Sacrifices? Doctor, they died because of me. I failed them. Spock says they want resolution, they need closure, and I don't know how to give them that.
Captain, with all due respect to Mr. Spock, he's wrong. Humans bury feelings of heartbreak and loss. We lock them away. And if we never come to terms with them, those feelings can paralyze us. I think you suffer from a great deal of guilt. You never had the opportunity to explain to them why you had to do what you did. Don't you see? It's not they that need resolution. It's you.
It's too late now.
It's never too late to make peace with those we love.
How? Where?
Invite them to come to you. Perhaps in the place you last left them.
That's a powerful scene in the movie.
Oh, I love Michelle. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's good at that, and that whole episode. And actually, I mean, I love the mirror, the continuation of that. But the White Iris is probably my favorite episode so far, because one of the things that my favorite episodes on Star Trek were always ones that got into the human psyche, and And
Yes.
and particularly the Enemy Within is one of my favorites, where Kirk was split in two.
Oh, yes,
And they
yes.
explored the dark side of people. And this one, while not exploring the dark side, exposed the vulnerability of Captain Kirk. And we always think of him, like you said, as being this swashbuckler or whatever. But inside he was really a very vulnerable person.
Yeah, and a very lonely man. And you know
Right.
what? I read something that Shatner wrote, or Shatner said in an article years ago. He said that had there been another season of Star Trek, had they gone forward with the reboot of the series back in the 70s, it was his intention to make Captain Kirk more human, more three-dimensional. You know what I mean?
Right.
To make him more flawed, if you will.
Right.
Because people can't identify with a hero that never makes a mistake, never stumbles and falls, never does something he regrets. So that was one of the things I wanted to accomplish with this episode as well, was to say, hey, you know what? Captain Kirk is not as squeaky clean without any mistakes or regrets or guilt as you might think.
Right. Yeah, and I think that comes across very well in the episode. And I'm not going to give the ending away, but I'm just going to tell you, people who haven't seen it, you'll need some tissues, because I was crying at the end of the episode. It's one of those aha moments where when it happens, you realize, oh, this has been in the back of my mind. It was there, but you didn't know it,
Yes, yes.
So,
Well, that's exactly what we were going for, John. So, and you know what? I got to tell you, even though I created the thing and know every frame of that episode and just know it inside and out, backwards and forwards, whenever I watch it with anybody now, finished, like in a screening, I sit there and tear up as well.
yeah.
So, hopefully it's accomplishing what we wanted it to.
Yeah. Well, tell us about the rest of the great cast of Star Trek Continues.
Well, that's one of the things I'm most proud of. One of the things that I identified with other fan productions very early on was that while they mean well and while they're genuine fans of the series, they're not actors. They don't have enough acting experience or training or background to really go deep and communicate deeper stories the way the original series would have. So from the very beginning, I wanted to make sure and get people that I felt could do that. And I feel like I really have. Like, Todd Haberkorn, who plays Mr. Spock, is a very dear friend of mine. He's a fellow voice actor friend of mine, and he's a very, very talented actor. And at first I thought, Todd's a little young to play Mr. Spock, but he's such a dang good actor that I decided to cast him after all. And he's wonderful. And then, of course, Chuck Huber is another dear voice actor friend of mine, and he does an amazing job as Dr. McCoy. And and then rounding it out, Michelle Specht is not only an amazing actress, but she's my fiance, and I love her dearly, and have always had such an admiration for her skills. She's an amazing actor, and so what she's able to bring, especially with an original character. You can imagine the challenge of trying to create an original character that was not part of the original series that can hold their own with these iconic characters. And she does an absolutely amazing job. And then, of course, how could you not love Chris Doohan playing his father's role as Scotty? And then, Grant Imahara from Mythbusters fame is a perfect Sulu, and a very talented young actor named Wyatt Lenhart plays Chekhov, and then Kim Stinger, who's a talented actress out here in Los Angeles, who I met on another fan series, actually plays Uhura. We have just got an amazing group of people I'm so proud of. And our crew is just as wonderful as our cast. I mean, Matt Busey is our director of photography, and it is precisely because of him that the series looks as amazing as it does.
Y'all definitely have the chemistry of like the original series, and you've had some. Tell us about some of the guest stars that have been on there too.
Well, our very first episode, right out of the gate, we had Mike Forrest, who was the original Greek god Apollo in the original series episode, second season episode, Who Mourns for Adonais? And he returned to reprise his role as Apollo in our opening episode. And then our second episode featured the likes of Lou Ferrigno and Aaron Gray. Jamie Bamber from Battlestar Galactica was in our first episode. And then our third episode, we had a little cameo from from Bobby Clark, who played the Gorn in the original episode Arena. He was the Gorn.
Wow.
And then in our fourth episode, we had some wonderful guest stars like Adrian Wilkinson from Xena, Nakia Burrese from Power Rangers, and Colin Baker from Doctor Who.
Wow.
We've had an amazing, amazing assortment of guest stars.
Well, you know what I thought was so funny about the Lolani episode with Lou Ferrigno is he got to be green again, like he was in Incredible
I know, right?
Because I got to tell you, before, I mean, I knew of Star Trek. I probably started watching it really heavily in the early 80s. Before Star Trek, I was a huge Incredible Hulk fan. And today, that still remains one of my favorite TV shows.
Yeah, Lou, in fact, you know what? Last night, we had a birthday party for Michelle, and Lou and his wife came to the birthday party. I mean, that shows you the kind of connection and the kind of friendship that are developed through this series.
Right. Now, do you have any communications with any of the original cast?
I do. I've become good friends with Bill Shatner.
Okay.
I've had the privilege to do several events with him and have dinner and spend quality time with him. And he's a wonderful man with whom I have great respect, for whom I have great respect. But I don't push Star Trek on him. When I'm with him, I don't talk about Star Trek. You can imagine how many hundreds of thousands of people have talked with him about Star Trek over the years.
Right.
So I don't talk to him about that much. I've allowed him to discover Star Trek on his own. You know what I mean? Like Star Trek continues. Mm-hmm. I'm just letting it kind of evolve organically, if you will.
Right.
I've done a lot of conventions with Nichelle Nichols and George Takei, Walter Koenig. We've all become good friends. I'm very good friends with several of the Next Generation cast, but the original series is really my great love. So.
Right. So what is it about the Star Trek, the original series, that you think still appeals to people to this day?
I think it's probably an optimistic view of humanity's future, where people don't care what religion you are. They don't kill you if you're not part of their religion, mm-hmm. and they don't shoot you if you don't agree with them, and wage war against people that don't share their beliefs. I think that's part of it, and also the fact, like you said early on, that the original series of Star Trek was brilliant at addressing human issues, right. Human questions, and human dilemmas, and that's the thing that I wanted to carry on.
Well, isn't it interesting? I saw an interview. You almost said same type of thing that DeForest Kelley said many years ago. He said that Star Trek in the 60s showed people, was optimistic. They showed people there was somewhere to go when it looked like the world around them was in total upheaval. And isn't it interesting that 50 years ago, here we are, and it seemed like the world around us is in upheaval, and we've got Star Trek again. So it's like,
yeah.
And I think your show helps people with that. And, it's saying, there is a future beyond what we're seeing right now where people can get along.
I agree completely, and it's that spirit of Star Trek that we wanted to communicate and continue.
Now, do you have a favorite episode or maybe just a special moment of the original series that you enjoyed, or is your favorite?
I love the characters so much, and I don't think there's any one thing that I could pick. It's just the overall feeling of it, the overall sensibilities, and the vision behind the original series.
You know, from what I've read on, sometimes it's amazing that the show looks, I mean, it looks so great on television, and behind the scenes they would say sometimes Gene Roddenberry was rewriting the script 5 minutes before they were going to shoot it. It's like,
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't realize that Gene and Bob Justman and DC Fontana often rewrote a lot of the scripts. They always gave the original writers credit, but they did rewrite the scripts. A lot of them, and that was for the purpose of keeping the vision consistent.
right. And so, now there was one author, I think it was James Blish, that had the books out that had the original,
Yes.
like in novel, like in written
Yes.
form. And I tell you, I think I read there were a couple of them. First of all, can you explain to me the alternative factor, because I've seen that thing 20 times and I still don't understand it.
Honestly, I don't either. I think that may be one of my least favorite episodes.
Yeah, because it just shows them at the end struggling inside that portal, and it's just like kind of leaves you like, now I'm bummed out.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you what, I encourage you and your listeners to read the books that Mark Cushman wrote. These Are the Voyages are the name of the books. He's written volumes for each season of Star Trek that are in-depth, very detailed volumes of the behind-the-scenes making of the series. I mean, every episode and all of the struggles that they went through and the challenges and the script rewrites and memos back and forth between Roddenberry and his production team. I mean, it was quite amazing.
Wow. Yeah. And it came off looking so polished and great on TV.
Yep.
Some of it.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned there was you've almost got the next episode will be coming out in September. Can you give us any hint of what that might be about?
I could, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
Let me just tell you this. Let me tell you that it's our first episode off the ship.
Oh,
How about that?
Great. So
That's a good spoiler, isn't it?
Yeah. Going planet side.
It's our very first episode off the ship, and about 80% of it takes place on the ship. Excuse me, off the ship, and only about 20% of it is on the ship.
Cool. Well, that'll be neat.
It's very exciting. It's a very big, let me just tell you, it's a very big episode.
Barney Fife's in it? Oh, big ain't the word, Andy. No, I'm just great. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And yeah, when you said on the planet side, the first thing that popped into my head was shore leave, because that's like that episode is so funny.
Well, now I'm going to give you one more hint.
Okay.
I didn't say it was on a planet. I just said that it was an off-ship episode. It was our first episode off the ship.
Oh, interesting.
So I will let your imagination run wild there.
Yeah. Well, in addition to Star Trek, you've done some Japanese, how do you pronounce anime characters in video games. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, that's my mainstay. I've not done some. I've done over 200 different anime series and video games over the last 16 or 17 years. I've been doing voice acting work for a very long time, and that's one of the main things that I do. In fact, the main reason that I get invited to conventions all over the country to do appearances and sign autographs is because of my voice acting career. I've played lead roles in shows like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon and Full Metal Alchemist and Naruto and Bleach and Sonic the Hedgehog and Avengers and Marvel, Wolverine and Iron Man, and have done a lot of voice work.
And what are some of the other projects you've worked on recently?
I'm working on a new one right now that's a very big fan favorite called Free. I also am working on a television series called Digimon, and just got a lot going on right now.
Now you're also in a TV movie I saw called Star Trek Renegades. What genre of Star Trek is that?
Well, that is an original independent Star Trek film that some different people have produced, and they asked me to play a role in it, and I played a character in it. That's about all I know about Renegades.
Okay.
It's being premiered, I believe, this weekend here in Los Angeles, and I'll be attending the premiere. I would encourage your listeners to go to the Star Trek Renegades website and fan page to check it out.
Right. Now I want to play. This is a funny clip. I played this when I interviewed Michelle last year too, because I love this clip from Leilani, and you probably know which one I'm going to play too.
I do.
This is funny.
Did you hear from Starfleet?
I did.
And what did they say?
We're allowed to continue our investigation, but as far as she's concerned, our hands appear to be tied.
So you're giving up?
I'm not giving up.
Sounds like you're giving up.
I'm not giving up.
There was resignation in your voice, Captain. Sir, we cannot simply return this girl to a life of servitude and slavery.
Dr. McKenna, you're new to this ship, so I'll excuse you for not understanding. But when I say I'll do everything I can, I'll do everything I can.
Do you always challenge each other in this manner?
No, not always. Why do you ask?
Well, I read in some cultures such challenging between males and females is considered a mating ritual.
No. Not in this culture.
Yes, I mean, no. No, yes to the no.
Oh.
That's another great episode, that kind of captures the original series, and I won't.
Yeah, you know what, John? A lot of people love that one the most. Believe it or not.
I think
I hear from many people that say, "Man, I love them all," and they're just one's better, just great as great as the next. But several people just really love Leilani.
Well, I think the part I love most about it is that at the end, Captain Kirk is willing to disobey Starfleet commands and risk his own career to save somebody.
Yes.
That kind of goes back to, in the Wrath of Khan, where they were talking about the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and Kirk says, no, the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many. I think that's right. Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah. That
is a great episode. Well, tell us again where the fans can find out more about you and about Star Trek Continues.
Well, certainly www.StarTrekContinues.com. And you can go to YouTube or Vimeo. In fact, if you go to StarTrekContinues.com and click on episodes, you can see all 4 of our episodes, along with some fun blooper reels and behind the scenes stuff. And like us on Facebook. Join our Facebook page, Official Star Trek Continues.
How has your faith played a role in your career?
Wow. Well, my faith plays a part in everything I do. Mm-hmm. My faith is the foundation of my life, and so everything that I do, is built on that. So all I can say is that I do my best. I certainly fail, like we all do, but
exactly.
I certainly do my best to honor God and to make Him pleased with me in my choices, in my behaviors, in my, in my life and relationships and the way that I carry myself. And I certainly make mistakes, but that is definitely my goal. That is my desire.
I was thinking about this today in preparation for the interview. Star Trek itself, I think, occasionally kind of delved into the spiritual realm occasionally, or the realm of faith through, helping humanity. And you guys kind of did that a little bit in The White Irish, and I don't have it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And James Kerwin and I wrote that scene with that in mind specifically.
Yeah. And I had a friend of mine who is a huge Trekkie. He's about 80 years old, and he said, I really like that part of the episode where it kind of got into a little bit of spirituality.
Yeah, it said they were talking about ghosts, and McCoy says to Spock, and here I thought you were a man of science. And Spock says, to be a man of science, to be a people of science, means to acknowledge that sometimes science points to something more.
Right.
We are also a people of spirit. The two are not, the soul and science are not as contradictory as many believe.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. It'd be nice if people would stop fighting over that all the time, wouldn't it? But yeah, I definitely, and I enjoyed that part of the episode too. Now, you, as well as acting, you are also a very accomplished musician and singer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you for saying so. I've been doing that twice as long as I've been doing about anything else. When I was about 17 years old, I discovered I could play the piano, and I started writing songs, and then I started recording songs, and just continued developing that skill, and started writing music for ad agencies and television and documentaries and radio, and then started producing records for myself, my own original records, and other people, producing records for other artists. And even the episodes that we've released, I have created and composed and produced a few pieces of music for the episodes that we released that most people would never know are not part of the original soundtracks.
Neat. Now I'm going to play. These are a couple tunes I'm going to play. I think this. I forget the name of the CD. You can probably tell me, but one of them's called "Far From Home," and that'll be followed by "At Calvary."
Yes.
Oh, what a world to take my breath away. From canyon deep to star above, I'll take their place to start the symphony of a great big love. I've seen the valley from the mountaintop, sailed across the blue and back again. From east to west, majestic tapestry I can't comprehend. That's not where I long to be. That's not where I long to be. Now I'm stuck here, but I don't belong here. Though my heart is so inclined to roll. Time is come and went now. Be with my Jesus, but for now I'm far from home. Though I'm a stranger in a strange land, this land can be a lot of fun. Yeah. I'd start a list of all that thrills me and never get done. That's not where I long to be. That's not where I long to be. Now I'm stuck here, but I don't belong here. Though my heart is so inclined to roll. Time is come and went now. Be with my Jesus, but for now I'm far from home. Years I spent in vanity and pride, caring not my Lord was crucified, knowing not it was for me He died at Calvary. Oh, the love that drew salvation's plan. Oh, the grace that brought it down to man. Oh, the mighty gulf that God did stand at Calvary.
Can people, can our listeners get some of your CDs on your website?
Absolutely, they can. In fact, you can go to, all of the CDs are available on iTunes. I have 6 different music CDs on iTunes. 2 of them are instrumental piano CDs, and the other 4 are vocal CDs. And you can also buy them if you want a physical CD. You can buy them from my fan club website, which is www.risemboolrangers.com. RISEMBOOL, risemboolrangers.com.
Great.
Or you can get them from me in person at a convention. If you ever want to come and say hello in person, I always have CDs with me at events that I attend.
All right. Oh, one question I forgot from earlier. I'll ask it now. Kind of, if you would, just kind of give us a brief walkthrough of the process of writing and filming an episode of Star Trek Continues.
Well, it's an extremely involved process. Extremely involved. You know, once we hammer out a story and then the script is written, then we hammer on the script for a month or 2. And then, you know, we set shoot dates and we start coordinating with all the people involved on making sure they're available and can be there for the dates they're needed. You know, if Michelle, for instance, is only needed for 4 days, you know, of the 10 or 11 day shoot, she needs to be able to be available for those days. So people are always coming in and out and shooting their scenes and leaving, but we have the best time. We all converge on our little studio in our town in South Georgia, and it's like a family reunion. To be honest with you, it's very much like a family reunion, and we have a wonderful time, as opposed to some productions that can't wait to finish the day to get away from everybody. We all go out to dinner every night after the shoot. We all go out to dinner, so that gives you an indication of the kind of relationship we all have.
Wow, that is really special. Well, I got to ask you, you mentioned earlier about the set and everything and building the set. What is it, and I know from myself, you know, you see Star Trek on TV and you wonder what it would be like to sit in that captain's chair. What is it like to walk onto the bridge and sit in the captain's chair?
What can I tell you? What can I tell you? It is beyond a dream. As a producer, as an actor, as somebody that's required to make sure we get what we need, I have to keep the producer's hat on. I have to make sure that technically we're accomplishing things properly. But apart from that, I mean, you know, the little kid inside of me is absolutely going crazy. The little kid inside of me can't believe that he's actually wearing a perfect uniform and stepping onto an amazing recreation of the sets. It's unbelievable. And I got to tell you, it's very daunting as well, because, you know, you can talk about playing a childhood hero all you want, but if you were to ever actually have the chance, it's extremely terrifying. You know, I'm standing inside the turbo lift waiting for them to open the doors for me to walk out onto the bridge as Captain Kirk, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, you know, the weight of it, the expectation of it, and what people are expecting you to do, and you know, is daunting.
Wow.
You know, a lot of people could say, you know, man, I'd love to play Wolverine. Well, if you ever found yourself on a set with cameras and lights and crew and other actors, and you had to deliver Wolverine, it's a lot more daunting than you would have ever imagined it would be. Well, listen, I'm about out of time, John, but I'm so glad to have had the chance to chat with you, and I would love it if you would share some of my music with your listeners, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk a little bit.
And thank you. And I just got one real quick suggestion.
Yes, sir.
If you ever do, this would be a funny little vigilante to do. Have Kirk and the Enterprise discover a Borg ship and have Kirk talk the Borg ship into committing suicide like he does all other computers on Star Trek.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I'll have to think of that one. I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah. But thank you so much for your time. This has just been a blessing, and continued success with your show.
My pleasure, John. God bless you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. And that wraps up my interview with Vic Mignogna that I did recently. And again, I just want to thank him for the time for doing the interview. He is a very busy man, and I will tell you, I've been trying to get this interview for months and months now, but he is so busy on different projects, and I was just honored to be able to do that. Well, we still have a few minutes left in the show, so in that time, I'm going to play another song by Vic Mignogna. Here is a great love song called I Don't Have Any Words. It's actually a French title, but I won't try to pronounce it and butcher it. Here is Vic Mignogna, and I Don't Have Any Words.
Come near and stand by me, baby, close enough to reach out and pull you still closer. All that is swelling within me must be a language I've never spoken till there was you. I fumble, try but I stumble over all my heart wants to say now. Je n'ai pas de mots, nothing seems to say the way you move me, rushing through me. Je n'ai pas de mots, but a promise has been made. You can't believe this from the first kiss. It's good that I don't have to speak to know that it's real. Je n'ai pas de mots. Come near and talk to me, baby. How did you know you were the dream of this dreamer? Oh God, how I thank you for reading in my heart the note I didn't even know that I wrote of what I longed for. You gave me much more. Love is standing beside me. Je n'ai pas de mots, nothing seems to say the way you move me, rushing through me. Je n'ai pas de mots, but a promise has been made. You can believe this from the first kiss. Je n'ai pas je n'ai pas de mots, je n'ai pas de mots, je n'ai pas de mots.
What a talented musician and singer. And next I have for you is an audio reading that Vic did from the book of John, and in particular this is chapter 3 where Jesus is talking to Nicodemus.
There was a man of the Pharisee sect, Nicodemus, a prominent leader among the Jews. Late one night he visited Jesus and said, Rabbi, we all know you're a teacher straight from God. No one could do all the God-pointing, God-revealing acts you do if God were not in on it.
Jesus said, "You're absolutely right. Take it from me. Unless a person is born from above, it's not possible to see what I'm pointing to God's kingdom."
How can anyone, said Nicodemus, be born who has already been born and grown up? You can't re-enter your mother's womb and be born again. What are you saying with this born from above talk?
Jesus said, "You're not listening. Let me say it again. Unless a person submits to this original creation, the wind hovering over the water creation, the invisible moving the visible, a baptism into a new life, it's not possible to enter God's kingdom. When you look at a baby, it's just that, a body you can look at and touch. But the person who takes shape within is formed by something you can't see and touch, the Spirit, and becomes a living spirit. So don't be surprised when I tell you that you have to be born from above, out of this world, so to speak. You know well enough how the wind blows this way and that. You hear it rustling through the trees, but you have no idea where it comes from or where it's headed next. That's the way it is with everyone born from above, by the wind of God, the Spirit of God." Nicodemus asked,
What do you mean by this? How does this happen?
Jesus said, "You're a respected teacher of Israel and you don't know these basics? Listen carefully. I'm speaking sober truth to you. I speak only what I know by experience. I give witness only to what I have seen with my own eyes. There is nothing secondhand here, no hearsay. Yet instead of facing the evidence and accepting it, you procrastinate with questions. If I tell you things that are as plain as the hand before your face and you don't believe me, what use is there in telling you of things you can't see, the things of God? No one has ever gone up into the presence of God except the one who came down from that presence, the Son of Man. In the same way that Moses lifted the serpent in the desert so people could have something to see and then believe, it is necessary for the Son of Man to be lifted up. And everyone who looks up to him, trusting and expectant, will gain a real life, eternal life. This is how much God loved the world. He gave his Son, his one and only Son, and this is why, so that no one need be destroyed. By believing in him, anyone can have a whole and lasting life. God didn't go to all the trouble of sending his Son merely to point an accusing finger, telling the world how bad it was. He came to help, to put the world right again. Anyone who trusts in him is acquitted. Anyone who refuses to trust him has long since been under the death sentence without even knowing it. And why? Because of that person's failure to believe in the one-of-a-kind Son of God when introduced to him. This is a crisis we're in. God light streamed into the world, but men and women everywhere ran for darkness. They went for the darkness because they were not really interested in pleasing God. Everyone who makes a practice of doing evil, addicted to denial and illusion, hates God light and won't come near it, fearing a painful exposure. But anyone working and living in truth and reality welcomes God light so the work can be seen for the God work it is.
Well, I wish we had more time to hear that, but sadly we're about out of time. But before I go, I want to tell you about a new show here on Victory Radio. It's the Dottie Kaufman Show, and you can hear that on Mondays at 9 a.m. and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And so give that a listen. And if you want to know more about Victory Talk Radio, you can go on Facebook and like our page there and find out more about upcoming shows and past shows. Thank you for tuning in this week, and I hope to see everybody again next Thursday.